everyone. My name's Joel Edmondson. I'm the CEO of the Venue Management Association. I'm very pleased to welcome you here today to this webinar with Steve Mackenzie, Chief Innovation Officer at Momentus Technologies. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'll hand over to Steve shortly. There will be the opportunity for Q&A in this session. So there is a Q&A tab here that you can enter questions into. And, we want to make this as interactive as possible, despite the fact that there's quite a lot of data for Steve to present. Before I hand over to Steve, I always take this opportunity to talk about things that are happening at the VMA at the moment. And the key one is that our Venue Management School and the Leadership Institute will be on in a little over 3 weeks. There are still places for those courses, although we're right at reaching capacity at the moment. So if anyone is interested in those courses, you can look at the VMA website to learn more if you don't already know about them, and certainly get in touch with the office if you've got any questions. But without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks very much, Joel, and hi, everybody. Thanks to the VMA for having me to do this presentation. Hopefully you'll all find it pretty interesting. So a little bit of background on this and why this presentation came about. So at Momentus, as many of you may know, we work with a lot of venues around the world, and so there's an awful lot of data out there that's really interesting. And so we did a research paper in conjunction with Julius Solaris from Boldpush, who some of you may or may not know. Julius is like the event industry analyst, if you like. He's been around a long time, but he works a lot with meeting planners and with other event industry professionals. And so we combined we polled all of our clients globally, and he polled all of his followers, 50,000 plus followers that he has for his newsletter and other stuff, to get some of the results here. And so the idea is I want to share some of that with you so you can see what the future of venues looks like according to you, according to the venue operators. This is what you're telling us based on the questions that were asked. So if I, just to give you an idea of the actual participants that were in the survey, there was many thousand, and it was across venues in over 50 countries, and not just convention centers, but stadiums, arenas, performing arts centers, theaters, museums. You can see all the lists of the venue types up there. And then the event management companies, so the people coming to the venues to do the events. There was everybody from organizers to professional PCAs, exhibition organizers, meeting planners, government entities, and so on. So very diverse group. And the titles of the people who responded ranged from the C-suite managers right through to the operational folks, the event managers, and across the spectrum, salespeople, everybody. So I think it's a pretty good indication of what you folks in the venues are seeing and feeling. So one thing we cannot get away from, and this is very apparent from the results of the survey, 50% of venues expect to see an increased focus on technology and automation in the next 5 to 10 years. No surprises there, right? However, the caveat with that is that 1 in 3 venues are seeing technology adoption as a challenge. So a third of you see this big focus on technology and the technology train that's left the station as something that's going to be a challenge. And what I'd like to show you here in this presentation is a bit about how you can adapt to that, and hopefully see the things you might be able to do to make sure that you're part of this revolution, if you like, that's going on. Everybody obviously recognizes when we talk about the future. You see that picture there of the Sphere in Vegas. I was actually there last week, and they were playing The Wizard of Oz, which was just mind-blowing to see that in this fully immersive environment. If you get the chance, go there, because this is one of the things, right, that we're seeing now with technology. It's no longer just about enhancing the event. The technology in some cases is the venue. So people go to the Sphere and or they go to Vegas and they don't say they're going to see the Eagles. They say they're going to the Sphere and they just happen to see the Eagles playing there, right? So this is game changing, and we've got to think about that as we think about the experiences people are wanting. And I think the question really isn't whether the industry will change. We know it's changing. It's already being changed. The question is, for us at the venue level, will you lead that change or will you be a follower? And obviously, the ones that are going to lead that are going to be the ones that win ultimately in the long run. So, what does future ready actually mean when we talk about the future ready venue? What does that mean? So, I just got a few points to share here. So, to me, what it means is that you're anticipating the guest needs before they're expressed, thinking about how can I make this experience better. You're using data to make every decision smarter. So, for a long time, our industry's been, we've done things, one, because I've always done them that way and they've been successful, or two, because my gut tells me we should do it that way, and that's fine. But we've got data at our fingertips now, more than we've ever had before. So we have to use data to make every decision we do smarter. And also, if I think about the future ready venue, it's like automating routine tasks to focus on really creating those extraordinary experiences. So instead of having to be stuck at my computer 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, I want to be able to do my job more efficiently and give me more time to be out there with my guests and my clients and creating that amazing, extraordinary experience that we want to do. I think the future ready venue also means that we've got to invest in our people and technology. It's not one or the other, it's both. Someone asked me recently, do you think with all this hype around AI, which we'll talk about soon, obviously, because it's a very big part of the technology now, but they asked me with all the hype around AI, do you think that AI is going to take my job? And I said, no, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who understands and can use AI better than you is going to take your job. And that's the sort of thing we've got to really consider. I look at where we're at right now with AI as I've been around for a little while, and I remember when the internet came out and the revolution that caused. I remember when smartphones came out and the change that made to everything that we did. To me, AI is that next part of that revolution, or evolution, if you like, of technology. It is game changing, and we have to get on board with it. It doesn't mean it's going to replace what we do. In fact, it certainly, I don't think will ever replace what we do, but it certainly can enhance it. And the final point I want to just talk about when we talk about what does the future ready venue actually mean, I think it creates competitive advantages that are hard to copy. You want to go to, you want to be this venue that everybody wants to go to, right? And obviously, yeah, we can't all be a Sphere, but there's other amazing venues cropping up all the time. On Friday, I was in Calgary in Canada at the BMO Centre, which is on the grounds of the Calgary Stampede. And that's a convention center, but you would not think about it as a traditional convention center because the way it's designed, and they've got the world's largest fireplace. They call it the gathering place, where everybody can just sit around and talk and meet, and just different things that they're thinking about the future and how people want to interact these days. So they're the sort of things I think that future ready actually means. So what came out of the report when I looked at all the data, there was 4 pillars that I think we could base the findings from the report on that would help us to become a future ready venue. And the 4 pillars are AI and automation, which we'll dive into. We're going to dive into each of these, by the way. So AI and automation was the first pillar. Data-driven operations was the second. And that's, again, every decision being backed by insights. Experience technology, which is the wow factor that drives bookings and what makes people want to come to your venue. And then sustainability foundation. What I mean by sustainability foundation is not that, we have to make sure that, we're so focused on sustainability, it's the best above all else. That ship has sailed. The data is telling us the meeting planners, they're not putting emphasis on sustainability, but that's a baseline expectation. So no longer is it like it was a few years ago where like that was, one of the big things in RFPs and so on, or that was a big thing in your marketing, how sustainable you are. It's an expectation now. So it's competitive necessity, but it's not what you're leading with. But if you don't have it, look out, because the people coming to the venue will certainly let you know that that's not okay at this day and age. So let's dive into that first pillar. First of all, the AI and automation. So working smarter and not harder. We've all heard that term, and that's really what we're trying to do. What we want to do with AI, right? We want to use it to help us do our jobs better. Letting the technology handle the routine, so your team can create the magic. I kind of like that tagline, to be able to do that. Think of it like, if you've got a team member and I even think of some of the more mundane things like, I'm working in finance and I've got to spend 6, 7, 8 hours of my day processing invoices. That's what AI should be able to help us a lot. That should be able to do a lot of that automation for us and free me up to go and do in that particular role, go and do some more analytics so I can make the business decision on a more informed way and better way. So there's a ton of examples. I won't go into them all now for the sake of time, but think of it in your department. Think in operations. If we could automate some of the setup and the requirements when we're trying to put together the event planning and so on, how many hours could that save us? Those sort of things are really, I think, where we're going to see a lot of benefits when it comes to AI. So think of it as your smart assistant. So and this was interesting if you look at some of these stats from the report, right? 67% of you see AI as having a significant impact on venue management. That's a lot. Yeah, 67%. So we know it's there, we know it's happening. But how are we going to manage that? And so 37% of the respondents see AI-powered automation as the most transformative for operations. So that's pretty interesting when you think about, okay, well, how does that apply to operations? So I'll give you a few examples across the board here from the venue perspective. So think about, here's some specific examples of what AI could do for you in the venue. So it could predict demand, right? So you can staff appropriately for busy periods. Based on all the data you've got before, this is, hey, we've done, 30 of these events very similarly, and this is what, at the end of it, this is the number of staff we needed, not the number of staff we thought we might need, but this is what actually happened. So being able to predict that demand will help you a lot with your rostering and being able to be more in line with or in sync with what really happens. Optimizing layouts, suggesting the best room configurations. Automating communications, so handling those routine guest inquiries. This is where the AI chatbots and so on are coming into play. You see them more and more, and they're getting very, very good now. You can also, in the operational side, can use AI to prevent problems like flagging issues before they start to impact guests, and of course save time. So focus your energy on the high value activities, not the mundane stuff like I talked about before. So the automation advantage, 77% expect significant or transformational efficiency improvements by using AI and automation. 77% of venues, that's a lot. So again, some real impact examples for you. Automated scheduling, being able to choose the best events. If you're looking at, okay, what events have we got that we've got penciled in? Let's choose the best ones that are going to suit our business, the ones we can either A, make the most revenue on, or B, the most strategic, whatever it might be, but have AI help you with that, the automation of that. Smart check-in and security systems to eliminate your guest waiting. No one likes standing in line. So, being able to use the automation advantage to help you with that. Predictive maintenance, preventing costly breakdowns, being able to use the automation of systems and tools to help you with that. And resource optimization can cut waste. So think about that in the kitchens, being able to, and the systems out there now that do this, right? Where you've got AI systems in the kitchens that can have cameras on every bin, and as you're throwing out the waste and the overages and everything else, it's tracking what that is, and it will give you reports. And at the end of the day, you better see, well, hey, gee, we're throwing out so many beans. Maybe we don't need to order so many beans next time for this type of event, as an example. But the bottom line is that with more efficiency is going to equal lower costs, which is going to equal higher profits. So we've got to take advantage of the automation. So the second pillar is data-driven operations. So again, we all hear that, let's use the data to make good decision. We know that, right? Stop guessing, start knowing. every decision should be backed by insights. So let's dive a bit more into what that is and what's building a data-driven culture mean. So again, of the respondents to the surveys or the research, 91% consider data analytics essential or very, very useful. 91%, that's almost everybody. So we can't ignore it. And if we're not using data to help us make our decisions every day, we're again getting left behind. So using data, what does that, in a venue, what does that give you? Well, first of all, it gives you clarity. You're going to see exactly what's working and what isn't working. The data doesn't lie. It's going to tell you that. Prediction, it's going to anticipate busy periods and guest needs because you've got the data to back that up. Optimization, so fine-tuning operations for maximum efficiencies. And proof, you better show the ROI to justify your investments. Everybody wants to be able to prove their ROI, right? For your return on investment, you've got to have data to back that up. And finally, competitive edge. If you've got good data, you should be able to make decisions faster than your competitors, and therefore be able to change when trends change. When you see the industry change, you should be right there at the forefront of it because the data is telling you to do this. So some metrics that drive success when we talk about data. Again, some of the research figures here, really, really interesting. The top success metrics that you all told us. Customer satisfaction scores, 26% of you prioritize that, which is great because at the end of the day, the customer's the person you need to hear from. I'm actually surprised how low that number is. I would have thought it would be flipped and be more like 75%. Because if you're not listening to your customer, there's a lot of options out there now competing with us for their experiential dollar. So I would encourage more of you to listen to the customers if you're not doing that. Another top success metric, revenue per event, 26% are prioritizing that. And 20% are prioritizing return on investment. Then if we look at the top venue KPIs or the key performance indicators, occupancy and utilization rates, about 30% or close to 30% of you are tracking that. Again, I think that number was pretty low. I would have thought that was a much more important metric because typically occupancy and utilization is going to convert into more revenue, right? Customer satisfaction, only 24% are tracking. It's again a little bit alarming, I'm going to say, but that was the feedback from the research. And then the revenue per square foot, which I get that's 13% are tracking that. I get that's that number's relatively low because we're going across venue types here, remember? So that revenue per square foot might not be so relevant in a performing arts center as it might be in a convention exhibition center. But the simple way that the data can help you improve your operations is with the occupancy tracking. You can know your peak times and optimize your pricing. The satisfaction scores, the CSAT for your customer scores, identify what works and what doesn't, what you think might work. If your scores from your customers coming back is not telling you that, then you need to change. And the revenue analytics, spot your trends and your opportunities as you see it through your revenue. And staff efficiency, see where you need more or less coverage. But the thing I'd leave you with on this one is track what matters and then act on what you learn. So if you're tracking the stuff, and I highly recommend you do, make sure that you're looking at that and acting on it because there's no point tracking if you're not going to do anything about it. This is a good example here of Levi Stadium, in San Francisco or in Silicon Valley, basically. They do, as you would expect, they do a lot of analytics, being in the heart of Silicon Valley there. And they are doing real-time analytics across all sorts of things. And this is a real dashboard that you can see things that are going on real-time from CSAT, you can see the happy and angry or sad faces there. So the customer satisfaction, right down through to the records that are going through at the different levels, the concession stands and guest services, the restrooms, the scores they're getting there. All real-time data that someone's tracking instantly or all the time to make sure during an event that they're making sure things are being done right. So the third pillar is experience technology. And what does that mean? Well, that's the wow factor that drives bookings. So again, we talked about the sphere before. This is looking at what is it beyond? People are coming to the venue now, and they're wanting more and more of an experience beyond just the conference they're coming to, the concert they're going to, the performance on the stage they're seeing. They're wanting all these other experiences to be that, that they've been like, wow, not only did I see that event, but there was all these other cool things going on around it. So you've got to create these experiences that guests remember and recommend. So think of before the event, during the event, and after the event. That's all opportunities to create this experience and the wow factor. And I'll give you a quick couple of examples of that. So before, you might do personalized recommendations, facial recognition, mobile ticketing. They're all experiences beforehand that can actually enhance the way that the attendee thinks about the event favorably or unfavorably. Then during the event, you've got digital signage to enhance things. Everything's contactless these days. AR or augmented reality for statistics. As you're looking at a sporting event, you might get the player stats on those glasses. You see the lady in the picture there, wearing some AR glasses there. Personalized content, show me stuff that's relevant to me. I was at the College Football Hall of Fame not that long ago in Atlanta, Georgia. And as you walk in, they ask you what your favorite team is. And as you walk through the whole exhibitions of everything they've got in there, every time you come near something to do with your team, it knows because your badge has got a chip in it, and it will highlight that for you. So it's tailored content to me, and really cool. I remember that was a few years ago. I still remember it now. Live translation for events where there's multilingual or you've got accessibility issues, gamification, crowd safety control, in-seat ordering. All these things are all part of the during the event experience and making it wow. And then after, of course, you personalized and curated recaps and pushing out post-event content to help people relive some of those great memories. People typically leave an event buzzing because they've had an amazing experience and they've created a memory. You want to make sure that they get to relive that afterwards as well and follow up. So they're just some ideas on the experience technology. And as we dive a bit deeper into that, what guests really want. So again, the feedback from the research, 66% of the people coming to the venues are saying they want personalized experiences. That's 2/3 want to have a personalized experience. And 54% prioritize high bandwidth connectivity. Wi-Fi, if you're still charging for Wi-Fi, stop it. It's the worst thing you can do in the most annoying way to really annoy the attendees at your event. If you want to make money on it, put it somewhere else. Put it in the venue rental or whatever, but do not make that a cost, because all you're going to do is get people offside. And these days, everybody wants to be able to get on their Wi-Fi. They want to be able to do things and share the memories they're making on their Insta pages or whatever they're doing. So experience technologies that typically win, you're looking at like contactless check-in and control systems like that, personalized lighting and climate control to suit individuals, immersive audio-visual capabilities. Again, being at the Sphere last week, watching The Wizard of Oz, as the tornado comes over you, your seat's shaking and vibrating and there's leaves blowing in your face, totally immersive, yet I was still sitting in my seat. Crazy stuff. Again, I mentioned high-speed, reliable Wi-Fi everywhere, mobile apps for seamless event management. It's interesting, I say mobile apps, but I think we're starting to see the death of the mobile app as we know it, and AI agents are going to take that over, where I can just ask my phone and find out things rather than having to scroll through a traditional app. What's the Wi-Fi password for this event, and be told that through the app. That's where I see AI actually taking over a lot. So the investment in this is paying off. So 72% of the venues that responded said they're likely to invest in attendee experience technologies. However, again, another caveat, the reality check is that 95% of high budget events prioritize the experience versus only 60% of low budget events. So this is a problem again. If you don't have the budget, and you know that this is a big thing, a big deal for your attendees, they'll come along, but they'll leave a little bit underwhelmed. So we've got to find a balance there where you can make sure that you're providing that experience, and maybe that means changing some of the budgeting around, but you can't ignore it. It's super, super important to the people coming along. And as we think about experiences, this is a good example. This picture here is from COSM, and these places are cropping up all over the states. This one's in Dallas. There's another one in LA. There's another one being built right now in Atlanta, and another one also being built right now in Detroit. But they've got plans to build over 100 of these over the next couple of years here in the US. And it's a sports bar, basically. But look at the people. They look like and feel like they're sitting on the sideline. It's almost like a mini sphere, but you've got all the amenities of a sports bar that you're there for. They've got their own production teams that are filming specifically for all these major events. So that's the wow factor. That's the experience technology we're talking about. So again, I know not everybody's got the dollars to do that, but this is what people are now coming to expect when they come to venues. And then the fourth pillar, the sustainability foundation, it's not a nice to have. Like I said, it's a must have. Okay, so it's a competitive necessity. You're not going to see it front and center in RFPs anymore, but it's just an expectation, like I say. So if we think about, again, some of the responses that came in from the survey, 80% of UC sustainability is very or extremely important. From a meeting planner side or an event planner, or people bring the events to the venues, 60% weigh sustainability heavily when they're choosing their partners, and 38% prefer technology to reduce waste. So that's something we probably didn't see a few years back, but now we're seeing that becoming more and more important. Once again, the reality, only 6% see sustainability as a game changer. It's an expectation, like I say. And I'll show you a picture here of one of my favorite venues, the Vancouver Convention Center in Canada. When we talk about sustainability, way before their time, look at the roof. They've got a full-on garden growing up there. They've got their own bees. I know a lot of venues in Australia are really leading and New Zealand for that matter are leading the charge with this sort of thing now. But this is what, when we talk about sustainability as a baseline, you're designing a building, you expect to have this ability to be much, much more sustainable. So again, baseline expectation. So how do those four pillars we just covered, how do they create that competitive advantage? Well, it's a compound effect, right? So you've got the AI and data. So you've got the automation plus the data. That's going to give you predictive operations that prevent problems. The experiential tech plus the staff. That's going to give you the memorable moments. They're going to drive loyalty. You back to the automation with sustainability. That's going to give you more efficient operations with lower environmental impact. And put all four together, and you've got a venue that's almost impossible to compete against because you're doing things the way that the people coming to your venue want them to be done, and you're embracing the technologies that are going to help you work that much better and give you that next level of what a venue is going to look like. So leading the industry forward, 83% of you from the venues that responded to this feel confident in your ability to adapt to future changes. That's great news. Some of the other stats were a little bit alarming, but I'm glad that 83% of you feel confident in your ability to adapt. So let's think, what does that future-ready mindset or future-ready venue mindset then look like? Well, I'll give you a couple of examples here, or a couple of taglines, if you like. We don't wait for change, we create it. Technology serves our guests, not the other way around. Data guides every decision we make. Our staff are empowered by tools, not replaced by them. And sustainability isn't a cost. It's an efficiency opportunity. So sustainability isn't a cost, it's an efficiency opportunity. That's the way we've got to think about it if we want to be that future-ready venue. So it starts today. So here's some, a couple of things for you to take away and think about after you go away from this. Which pillar represents your biggest opportunity? Which is the thing you think, yeah, I can buy into that. I can see where I can do something in one of these four areas and make a difference. And what would you change in your business if you were truly future ready? What do you think needs to change to get you to what we just looked at and walked through here? And most importantly, what's stopping you from doing this today? Is it budget? Is it mindset? They can all be overcome, but you've got to be willing, and you've got to get management buy-in and everybody's buy-in to make sure that if you want to be that future-ready venue, You've got to all be on the same page and make it happen. So think about this. The venues that thrive in the next decade won't be the ones with the most square footage or the fanciest facilities or the number of seats in the stadium or the whatever. They'll be the ones that use technology and data to create experiences that guests can't get anywhere else. That's the venues that are going to thrive. So the future belongs to the venues that embrace change. I'll leave you with that thought. Will yours be one of those? Now, if you would like to, you can download that report. It's actually in that research paper. If you look at that QR code, that'll give you that. So feel free to do that, download that. And with that, we're just been going just over the 30 minutes or so. So I'll be very happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Steve, I might kick us off just to
Of course.
keep the dialogue flowing.
Yeah.
You spoke a little bit before about venues and events without the money not being able to compete in terms of meeting expectations around the experience itself being at the forefront. That strikes me as a kind of existential issue. Have you got ideas about how venues and events can deal with that without the money to address it?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard reality, right? We all want the Rolls Royce, but sometimes we're only going to budget for the VW Beetle. It's tough, and I know I've shown some examples here of some pretty flashy venues around the world. We can't all afford that. But when I think about that, though, I think there's still opportunity because not everything comes down to budget. I think there's some pretty interesting ways we create those experiences for people that are going to be a wow without them having to think I've got to put 750,000 cameras in my venue to be another sphere. Little things that people remember when they go into a venue, whether it's customer service, that doesn't cost as much, but if you've got an amazing customer service or customer experience, that goes a long way to creating that experience for me. It may be something as simple as some cheap props that you give out for a theatre performance or something like that just people go home and talk about that. Again, we've got to start thinking outside the box, and if we don't have the budgets, and many of us don't, then think about it from that perspective. What can we do that's going to make a more memorable experience and not going to break the bank?
I wonder as well whether you gave the example of COSM before in terms of their proposed scale up across, the whole United States. So going from one venue to 100 venues. And I assume that over time, the development of each of those venues becomes more efficient based on learnings from the last one. I mean, is scale and repetition a sort of important part of this process as well?
Oh, I think so. I mean, Joel, you were lucky enough to experience a COSM when you were over here in the States recently for an event, and it is pretty spectacular. But I think you're right. I like it. I think there was and I forget the example of the name of but there was a certain amount of ships that during the Second World War, the US were building, and they, I think, at the start of it, they were turning out like something like one or two every year. By the end of the thing, they got better and better at it, and they were churning out like almost 100 because they'd learned from the repetition of doing things. They learned to be more efficient, and we're in a pretty fortunate position where all the automation and the tools, the technology we've got at their fingertips can help us with that repetition, that learning. So I've got no doubt that they'll be doing those things, knocking them out. They might be doing one every few months or one every year now, and we're knocking them out every couple of months, 8 weeks sort of thing, because they're learning from the efficiency gains from doing it before. And I think that goes across the board though when you're talking about everything. In whether it's an experience you're creating, whether it's I look at again the example of the Sphere last week. They've never shown a movie in there before, but they've got their Postcards from Earth, which is the standard one, but they took the whole movie of the Wizard of Oz and now they've done that. They're about to do that with all sorts of different movies. And so it becomes a really repetitive opportunity for them.
And Cosm have created a custom version of the Matrix, which I saw while I was
Yeah, okay.
there,
Yeah,
which was different to, I mean, the Wizard of Oz that Steve's talking about is, it takes up the whole sphere itself.
yes,
This sort of more lo-fi approach to it at Cosm was you've got the film in a 16:9 frame, but then the developers have created like live environments for the rest of the sphere that extends what is on screen. So you imagine like when Neo in the Matrix is standing on top of the building and he's going to jump off the first time to test, whether he can live. Then as he jumps off, the whole environment around you is these buildings that then tilt that give you this impression that you're kind of falling off the building with him, which I thought
yeah,
was a really innovative way of kind of like remixing and extending into like an augmented reality experience, a classic film.
totally.
Hmm.
Totally, and yeah, and to you, that's a great point. And even to that, with the Wizard of Oz experience, they were dropping when Dorothy's shaking the apple tree, they're dropping apples into the audience from the roof. Look like they're coming out of the apple tree, but they're these like foam rubber sort of apples, and now they've become a coveted thing. People are selling them on eBay, and everybody wants one of these apples.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah,
just we've got a couple of questions that have popped up, but just one other thing I'd say about it, talking about Cosm and the sphere in the same conversation is interesting too, because it shows how the same concept can be brought down to a smaller scale and still executed
most definitely,
well. And I
very very
think
well.
that
Yeah,
that is that's really relevant to, we need to take these big visionary ideas and think about ways that we can apply them in the context that we have the funds to do, because the Cosm is essentially a version of the sphere that is more replicable because it's
100%.
smaller.
Yeah, no one's got the budget of a sphere. So yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
like I can imagine, Cosms in every capital city in Australia in the next 10 years very, very easily.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Let's go to some questions. So we've got a first question from anonymous attendee. I wonder who this is. Where do you turn to first to learn about and keep up with AI? It can seem overwhelming with so many platforms.
Uh, it's a great question, and yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, right? I'm sure for a lot of the venue operators to think, well, look, my core job is to create a safe environment for my attendees to be in, and provide this amazing place where they can create memories and experiences that they'll remember forever. Now I've got to think about all these technologies as well. How do I do that? And it's very very tough. And how do I how do I filter out the noise from it all, and what's important and what's not? Um, I think that's where you rely on the experts to help. Um, and I think this is as an industry association, we've got responsibility to help our members with those sort of things, to be able to give them the avenue for education. That's, I plugged for the venue management school and the lights, webinars and different things where, we've got to tackle these topics at front and center to get them. And so we can tell you, these are the things that you should be, focused on, the things that you shouldn't be. Um, Look, I think AI is still in its infancy, especially when it comes to our industry. Everybody says to me, "I've got to use AI, but what do I do with it?" Obviously, I'm working in the tech company, so we're doing probably a lot more with AI than most are. But that's our responsibility to bring that out to our clients and say, "Hey, here's how we can make this work for you," so that you don't have to be the ones trying to pioneer these things. So, it's I think it's a multifaceted thing, but don't be afraid to ask questions of your suppliers. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the industry associations, and don't be overwhelmed. I know it's hard not to be, but you're going to see what we typically see in our industry is that the mainstream sort of other industries, if you like, will adopt technology before we do, and you'll start to see things where, like, think about mobile phones, right? In the venue industry, when the mobile phones first came out, we were very quick to say you can't have your phone on at an event. That's rude, and it's you got to have them all turned off so we're not distracting the people speaking or the actual event that's going on. Well, then it became mainstream that everybody was using their phones for everything, so we had to adapt to that. And now we're encouraging people to bring their phones out and to film content and to, well, except for the likes of the comedians that don't want you upsetting their Netflix specials they're doing. But pretty much everybody else is letting you, use your phones to share the experience. So to me, that's a good example of probably what's going to happen with AI. We're going to, use a little bit of it and dabble in that right now. But as it becomes more mainstream in other areas, then we'll see where people in their everyday lives, how they're using it. That'll come back into how we start to see how we need to do it in the venues as well. It seems to be the way technology happens for us.
Aslan has a question. What do you think the future looks like for hospitality in venues, toilets, waste, cleaning, maintenance, etc.? Are there new technologies out there or on the horizon?
Yeah, it's a great question. Aslan probably works in that side of the business, I would say. But yes, very important. I think some of these, back of house areas and whatnot have been probably a little bit neglected when it comes to the wow factor, right? We talk about, all these amazing experiences when you're front and center watching a performance or seeing a hologram presenter or whatever, but we tend to forget about the necessities like the cleaning and the toilets and that. Look, I've seen some, and I'm sure you've all seen them in Australia and New Zealand and that as well, and Asia. But just basics like being able to be alerted in a control room when the paper towels are running out in a bathroom. Pretty simple use of technology, but that exists today. So that, and how frustrating is it when you go to a bathroom and there's no paper towels left? If you can have the technology alerting you of that, and as I say, that exists. Same with the food waste and so on. I think Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre is a great example in that region of somebody who's at the forefront of some of that, and they're using this. I think it's called Winnow technology, where they've got the cameras on the bins that's recording everything being thrown out, and they're already seeing a marked impact on the less food wastage because of that. Which then obviously impacts your bottom line. So there's definitely some focus on those back of house operations, but I think there could still be more.
In lieu of any more questions, Steve, did you want to make any closing remarks?
Look, yeah, thanks, Joel. I just first of all, again, appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. I'm pretty passionate about this technology, obviously in the industry, but and passionate about the industry itself. And I don't want to see us become irrelevant because we get overtaken because we weren't apt or adapt to change quickly enough. And I think that's one of the crossroads that we're at the moment. I've been a firm believer that face to face is the be all and end all when it comes to interacting with people, and you cannot replicate that face to face experience. The reality is it's getting damn close to replicating that now with the cosms and that of the world where you can feel like you're at an event without actually being there. So we have to be very wary of that. We have to embrace that and think about how can we embrace these technologies to make sure that people still see us as relevant, still want to come. Again, I'll caveat that as a final thought with the good news for us is that, events are more popular now than they've ever been. Because as we see the rise of technology, particularly with deep fakes, I was watching something last week with Robin Williams. There was all sorts of, videos out of him saying all these things that he clearly wasn't saying because he's not alive. And it was a real concern about these deep fakes that you would not know on face value that they weren't real. So the good thing for us about all that is that Mark Cuban came out and said the only place you can trust conversations now is face to face at events. So that's a good thing. But by the same token, we can't ignore technology. It's coming for our lunch, and we've got to embrace it and make sure that we share the pie with it.
Steve, thanks so much. These webinars are a great chance for us to put out information that venues and events really need to learn about, but equally they're an opportunity for us to respond to what people want to see. And the VMA wants to do more webinars that are in response to specific ideas that the members have about what they'd like. So I really encourage you to reach out to us. And as we're planning our webinars for next year, we would really love your input on that. So please contact me at joel@vma.org.au. Equally, Steve's always up for a chat about this topic, and I'm sure Momentus want to have their ear to the ground as much as possible about the kind of information that people are looking for about the future of the industry. So again, please don't hesitate to look out to Steve. But again, thank you, Steve. Thanks for everyone coming today, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks all.